Hello and welcome to the Kenneth Vercammen Law Office Legal Podcast. We're looking this edition at domestic violence cases, and here the New Jersey case of State versus Manzano, an unpublished case. Now, it's not in this case. There was a temporary restraining order issued against the defendant. Typically in the family court, the initials are used, but then if they commit the criminal violation of a restraining order, then the full name is used. So here there's a restraining order, and then there's the criminal contempt, which was then dismissed after a hearing. The state appealed the trial court's order dismissing its prosecution of defendant on the offenses of contempt and resisting arrest, disorderly persons, on the ground that defendant's conduct reflected de minimis infractions. The municipal court judge had entered a Prevention of Domestic Violence Act temporary restraining order against defendant after she was arrested for injuring a person with whom she resided, which counts under the Domestic Violence Act. When defendant was released, she promptly violated the temporary restraining order by returning to the residence and harassing the victim with telephone calls, even though the order said no contact and no going back to the place. The victim reported to police that he feared for his life. Police found defendant in her car, but had difficulty arresting her, and she refused to comply with the officer's orders. The defendant was subdued and charged with disorderly persons offenses of contempt and resisting arrest. The defendant filed a motion and moved to dismiss the charges as de minimis infractions under 2C:2-11. Upon the hearing, which included witnesses' testimony and police officer body cam, the trial court granted the motion. The trial court concluded there was no evidence defendant actually caused or threatened the harm sought to be prevented by the law in defining her alleged offenses, and it deemed defendant's actions too trivial to warrant conviction. The state appealed. The appellate court reversed and remanded for further proceedings. The appellate court found the trial court abused its discretion in granting defendant's motion because it did not apply the correct standard in assessing facts pertinent to the dismissal motion. The appellate court conducted a de novo review and deemed reversal was warranted where defendant's actions caused and threatened to cause the harm sought to be prevented under the contempt statute pursuant to which she was charged. There was nothing trivial in defendant's acts of contacting the domestic violence victim by phone and being at his residence in violation of the TRO shortly after her release from custody. Defendant therefore was not entitled to dismissal prosecution of the contempt charge, nor the appellate court said was she entitled to dismissal of the disorderly persons resisting arrest charge. Here, where defendant defied officers' orders, flailed about to prevent being placed in handcuffs pursuant to her arrest. The trial court also erred in deeming defendant's conduct too trivial to warrant prosecution. Defendant brazenly violated trial court's TRO and physically fought against officers' efforts to arrest her. Such conduct, with no extenuating circumstances, fell within the range of conduct the legislature intended to criminalize. And that's the unreported appellate case of State versus Manzano, docket A-1017-22. For more information on domestic violence cases, visit website njlaws.com or website benotguilty.com. And for representation, contact Ken Vercammen's office in Edison at 732-572-0500. Thank you.